Hello friends! Today I'm going to be reading to you a story, The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, as told by John Sheska and illustrated by Lane Smith. So while we're reading this story, we're going to focus on compare and contrast, which is, if you're in my classroom, we talked about compare and contrast, meaning what's alike and what's different. And when you have a Venn diagram with the two circles, right, on one side you write how they're different, and in the middle of that Venn diagram you're writing how they're the same. So we're going to be focusing on, well, everyone should know the story of the Three Little Pigs, and this is the true story of the Three Little Pigs. So we're going to be hearing about the story from the wolf's perspective. So while we're reading this, we're thinking, well, how is this story alike and different from the real true story of the Three Little Pigs? Here we go. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. So we're already seeing some differences, right? The wolf is telling the story, whereas in the story of the Three Little Pigs that we know, the Three Little Pigs are telling the story. So already the narrator is different. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneeze and cold. I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who has in their right mind would build a house of straw? So already we see a difference, right? In the portrayal of the other Three Little Pigs story, they're talking about how the pigs had to build a house because they were afraid of the wolf. They built the house to save themselves from the wolf. But in this story, he's just walking over to his neighbor's house for sugar. So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed. And I sneezed a great sneeze. So in this story, he sneezes, but in the other story of the Three Little Pigs, he huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down. Well, from the wolf's perspective, he just had to sneeze. And you know what? The whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar, so I went to the next door neighbor's house. The neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house of sticks. I rang the doorbell in the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, go away, wolf, you can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. So in the other story, they say, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. That's a good comparison there, right? Here he's saying he's shaving the hair on his chinny chin chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not gonna believe this, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail, wolf's honor. Now, you know food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open, so I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better. And I still didn't have my cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the house next door. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. And I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that rude little porker answered? Get out of here, wolf! Don't bother me again! Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't even give me one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake, but when I felt my cold coming on, I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, and your old granny can sit on a pin. Now look at this picture. The pig looks like the bad guy in this picture. Look at those eyes. He looks mean. Now that's a great comparison, right? Because in the other Three Little Pigs story, the wolf is the bad guy. But in this story, the pig looks pretty mean. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course I was trying to break down this pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. There were no cops in the other story, right? This is another comparison. The rest, as they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the two pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting, so they jazzed up the story with all of that huff and puff and blow your house down, and they made me the big bad wolf. That's it, the real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar. The end. And that's our story. Thanks for joining me, guys. Hope you're doing well at home and staying healthy. Not sick.